Welcome to Chapter 16 of Motor Development and Skill Learning. We're doing psychosocial constraints in motor development. And we'll see if the slideshow will start. Again, sorry for my computer and the way it works. I think I've got the computer that came after the old Apple Mac IIs that you used to put the floppy disks in that played Oregon Trail. That I used to use in elementary school, if that dates me any. This thing runs about at the same speed of whatever must have come directly after that. So anyways, psychosocial constraints in motor development. Psychosocial influences, interaction of an individual, functional constraints with the environment, which are sociocultural constraints, emotions, perceived ability, and other personal attributes. So again, we're looking at how our environment influences our development again, right? Very similar to the last chapter. Self-esteem, self-evaluation of individual capability. There's general and then there's specific, your physical ability, appearance, social skills. Right? A person's belief in correctness of self-evaluation is more important than the accuracy of the self-evaluation. So this is, again, we see such a trend towards boosting, especially when we're talking about children, boosting their self-esteem, boosting their self-esteem. And again, it's one of those things, a lot of times parents, any of you that are around youth sports, every kid is like, they're like 1 year out of Major League Baseball, 1 year out of the NBA, 1 year out of the NFL, according to their parents, right? Again, their parents have a very self-inflated belief of what their children can do, or at least, we'll say supportive parents, right? There are some other parents, that are, maybe more realistic, and then there are some parents that are just awful parents. You get the realistic parents who are like, you know what, little Johnny's having fun. No, I don't think he's gonna make the NFL, but little Johnny's having fun and we're supporting him and we're glad he's having fun, right? And then you got the other parents that, be like, little Johnny's terrible. I can't believe that I waste my money for little Johnny to come play football, right? But again, there's a very, there's so much research on self-esteem and the impact that it has. And again, you've got to take so many things in account, because again, we've made so many decisions, especially when it comes to things such as, like how things are done in school, to again, looking more at like movement, things like that we do in PE and that we do in sports, that sometimes we do things that are not necessarily in the best interests of the child's full development, because we're worried more about the self-esteem, right? And again, years past, they didn't care about self-esteem. And was there detriments to that? Yeah, there was, right? And so that we've kind of gone this like, full swing in the other direction where it's all about the self-esteem. And again, there's detriments to that too. So we've got to be very careful. And I'm saying this because you being students and future leaders in these fields, we've got to find that balance of being realistic and correcting, allowing children to fail. That's one of the biggest things people don't let the kids fail. Don't let the kids fail. Don't let the kids fail. Here's the thing. I failed a lot as a kid. It hurts. It is. It stinks. It hurts. It, emotionally, physically, if you're playing a sport and, like you get beat up emotionally and physically and you lose and, but there's a lot to be learned in those moments too. And again, as an adult who leads children during those times, you have the opportunity to pick kids up that are down. You have an opportunity to challenge them to be better. You have the opportunity to really change, like especially if they failed because of lack of trying, lack of intensity, they just got caught off guard. I mean, they maybe if they even worked really hard and they still failed. These are great life lessons, in the hands of a good adult leader, um, they can really use these moments to be major teaching moments for children. But what we've now done is we've taken away those teachable moments, those opportunities, especially now if you have, there's so many leagues where they don't keep score, they give everybody a trophy, they do this. I mean, kids are just out there running around and getting, somewhat having fun, but there's some teachable moments that we've completely lost, right? And so again, I'm not bagging on self-esteem, because again, kids need to build their self-esteem, but there needs to be a little bit more accuracy in their self-evaluation, and also there needs to be that, the self-esteem of this, if we look at future self-esteem, this is where I'd like to be, this is where I'm at, what do I need to do to get here, right? And again, we don't learn anything most of the time when we succeed. I mean, it's just one of those things like, all right, I won again, great. you know um it's usually in losses, it's usually in, like when you don't score well on a test and things like that, that you realize you got something to learn, right? Those are those moments, and we need to quit robbing children of those moments, right? Social interactions, parental appraisal, comparison with others, teacher, coach, feedback, and emotions, enjoyment, pride, excitement with success, disappointment with stress or failures. And that's the big thing. You see that one at the bottom, disappointment with stress or failure, right? And again, we think so much about the emotions, but self-esteem is only a part of the puzzle, right? Because again, there's reality, and again, there's, you're going to go on to your first job or your second job. You're going to be adult at some point, and your boss doesn't care about your self-esteem. Your boss cares about your productivity, right? You bring value to a company. That's why you have a job. Nobody owes you a job. Nobody owes you anything. So if you do not bring productivity, if you don't have something to offer, they will fire you. They will tell you you're doing a bad job, and you will feel disappointment and stress, right? And again, it's okay to have a little bit of that in your life, and it's okay to take that and use that to build on. Okay. So children under 10 depend on appraisals of and comparisons with peers to determine their physical competence. Children of all ages develop self-esteem from feedback and appraisals from teachers and coaches. Um, and that's the thing. I mean, I've coached kids before. And again, the thing that I always try to be with the kids was honest. So if they're doing something incorrectly, I'd let them know they're doing it incorrectly. If a kid was failing, usually, and that's the beauty of sports, is usually there's reasons why, and I lay it out for them. I'd say, look, you're not hitting the baseball, and again, baseball is a good one, because not everybody, like sometimes now in these soccer leagues, they let every kid take a turn kicking a goal during the games, or, in baseball, at the little leagues, they let them swing until they hit the ball off the tee, which again, I don't really, I mean, it is what it is. They do, 3 and 4 year olds, whatever. But once they get to like 6 and 7, they need to, you know, hit or strike out or pop out and all that stuff. But anyways, um, you know, when I had those kids, and they, I can't fake that they're doing fine. If a kid's going up every time and they're not hitting the ball, of course they're not doing fine. They know they're not doing fine. I can't tell them they're doing fine, but I can tell them, like, where I've saw improvements, hey, your back leg motion of turning got better from the last time, right? Yeah, I'm still not hitting the ball, coach. Yeah, okay, well, we're going to keep working on those skills, right? You're getting better at this part. Your swing was more compact, you weren't stretching out like you did, or vice versa. You're not holding the bat too close, you're actually getting your hand. You look at the positives and you instill that, and you remind them, like, hey, you're still doing this, and that's going to be an issue while you're not hitting the ball, or you're not, your eyes aren't set watching the ball all the way through, all the way through your bat, or whatever those things. And because again, we want them to get true success, we don't want to fake the success for them, right? And so again, the make sure you give appraisals. I mean, there's always good appraisals that you can find in any kid and what they're doing. I mean, even if a kid throws a fit on the field, you wait till they calm down. You do see, like you try to point some out, like, look, man, I'm glad you're passionate about the fact that you missed the ball. Like I'm glad that that bothers you, but we can't have outbursts like this on the field. You've got to keep your composure. You've got to, I mean, you can always find something to be positive about, but when they're in the wrong or they're not succeeding, we need to be honest with them too, right? And so again, there's a way you do that. And again, self-esteem can act as a constraint. When somebody doesn't feel like they're good, sometimes they give up too much. Again, sometimes when somebody doesn't feel like they're doing well, it's your job as an adult to tell them, like, look, yeah, I get it. You're not playing well. I understand that, but what do you want to do about it? You haven't the option to quit. I don't know that you're going to feel good about that option. You're going to be done with it. You're going to be sad. Your friends are still playing. You're not going to have to go through the disappointments anymore. But you also have the opportunity, hey, you want to come to practice early, 30 minutes early? I'll spend time, helping you hit or throw or whatever their issue is. You know, give them opportunities to work harder, give them opportunities, and show them that when they're putting in the extra work, really take that time with them and help them out and help them to build resilience, right? So they've been failing at this. You help them put in the extra work. You help them build resilience. They see success. I mean, there's not a better feeling than knowing that you worked hard for something, you got it, right? And that's what we need to build, right? Things are not handed to us in general, right? I mean, yeah, some people, are, grandpa was rich, passed the company down to junior, who passed the company down to junior, or whatever. I mean, but that's like, that's like the smallest percentage of people in the world. Most everybody else has got to find a way to succeed, right? We're not given those things. So you got to do that. And it happens with professional athletes. Sometimes they kind of lose their mojo, um, and again, it's a moment as a coach that you take them and you help them realize, like, man, look, you got here. I don't know what's going on right now. I mean, let's look at your mechanics, let's look at things like that, but what's going on in your head too? It could be up there a lot. Most of the time when professional athletes fail, something's going on psychological, because there's a reason they got there. They obviously have the talent to get there. So what's going on mentally? What's changed once they got there? Social interactions, comparison to peer performance can begin as young as 5 years of age. Man, this is just, I know that the difference of guys and girls, like they talk that there are differences in the ways that guys and girls compare themselves to other guys and girls. Especially adult. I'm not sure how it is with kids. And again, I can tell you from what I see with my kids in the way that they talk about, like, so and so versus them, and definitely at younger ages. I My kids don't really talk about it. I can see it sometimes in the things they do. They want to especially, not really with their peers, but with their siblings, more than anything. They're always competing. Now, my oldest kid now, just because she's super competitive in school, which I don't know where she gets that, because my wife was she was a hardworking student. I don't know that she was never necessarily ever competitive about, like, trying to be the smartest kid in class. I definitely wasn't that kid. I could have cared less when I was in school. Now on the sports field, that was different. And the funny thing is I was a really, really strong student, tested well on everything, got really good grades, but could care less. I was always a terrible athlete, but always wanted to be a great athlete. So I was constantly comparing myself to the guys that I was playing sports with. And most of the time I wasn't really adding up the way I wanted to. Right. And again, any of you that have been around me long enough, you guys know I was that kid that was constantly working. I'd go play a sport on the playground with the kids. And then, as soon as I got done with get home and I got done with my homework and I was allowed to go outside, man, I was out there like I didn't matter if it's soccer, didn't matter if it's basketball, it didn't, like it didn't matter if it was a sport I didn't even care about, but that's the sport that we were all playing. Man, I was practicing, right? I wanted to be better. um I always wanted to be one of the better athletes. Never quite achieved that, but always tried. um you know and again, young children are not as accurate as adolescents in their self-eval. I mean, I don't think we want them to be to an extent, because again, we don't, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, I think all little kids that are athletes have aspirations to be professional athletes. And I would never tell my kids at a young age. Now I'll tell them, oh, it's really hard to get there, but work for it. If that's something that's important for you, work for it. And again, more than likely, 99% of all kids are going to be disappointed if that is one of their dreams, they're not going to reach it. But that's okay. It's okay that, they're not as accurate at that, right? Because it gives them hope and it gives them goals to work towards. And again, feedback and appraisal from teachers and coaches can also influence their self-esteem. Um, you guys, when you get in those positions, when somebody's doing stuff right, please let them know that they're doing it right. And also, again, please correct them when you need to. And again, every, I've been asked, all right, well, what's the best coaching method? It kind of depends on a lot of factors. One, it kind of depends on you as a person. If you're sarcastic and you can use that to your advantage, do it. If you're sarcastic but you do it in mean ways, be careful how you're sarcastic, especially working with kids. If you're a quiet person, that can be beneficial, but there may be times, especially when you're teaching or coaching, you've got to find an alternate personality to be loud. I'm actually part of that. I was always a quiet kid. I was quiet in college. I got my first coaching gig and I was kind of quiet. I would go from like athlete to athlete and like just basically work one-on-one with them. And I actually got to work under Bobby Knight, who, if you don't know, is one of the most vocal NCAA basketball coaches of all times. He's a Hall of Fame basketball coach. Anyways, he made a comment to my boss, like, you need to yell at him or teach him how to yell so he can talk to, like, instead of going from player to player with the same problem, like actually just be like, hey, oh, you guys need to do this. I had to learn that. And in all honesty, it was a great learning experience. It's not something that's natural to me, but I've used it in being able to teach. I coached for a long time. And then I got into being a professor and it served me well. And again, it's not natural. It's a whole different part of a personality that I had to develop as an adult. And I use it when I have to use it. But again, it's not something that I necessarily have. Um, and so again, these are things, if you're not good at certain things as an adult, trying to make sure that you're doing good influence on self-esteem for children, you got to learn to develop it, right? Emotions associated with participation in sport and physical activity affect the self-esteem development. Enjoyment in pre and young adolescence is furthered by perception of high ability, mastery, low parental pressure, and greater parent and coach satisfaction. So basically, one thing is don't be one, if you're a parent, don't be the parent that pushes your kids into sports or you're trying to live vicariously through their accomplishments in sports. Again, all kids want to be good at stuff, right? But again, not all kids are good at things. And again, with that, doesn't mean that child can't enjoy a sport that they're not great at as long as you're helping them or somebody's helping them to get better at it, right? And so the master of the sport is developing, and that's fine, right? They don't need to have a false sense of, like mastery of something, right? Because the problem with that is when you're always telling, no, 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 Johnny, you're good, you're good, you're good. Johnny's going to play a sport against somebody that is actually really good at it, and it will become apparent to him at that moment that Johnny sucks, right? So again, there's a part of like, hey, you're good at this. We need to develop this. Let's work on this. Let's work on this. And again, you know, hey, you're getting better, and those are great. You're getting better. You're getting better. You're moving forward. You're doing this. You're doing that. Um, you know, those are things that help, right? And so, you've got to work on those things. Um, you got to work on those things to get better at something. And again, as a coach, there's a combination of showing them, okay, here's where you're at, but you really can be here, and if they're like, yeah, but can I be the next, King Griffey Jr., can I be the next, Michael Jordan or something like that? I wouldn't just straight up tell them no. You just tell them like, who knows? Yeah, you got to, if you want that, you're not anywhere near that, but keep working, And again, you never know. Some kids are late developers and physically and things like that, and sometimes they get a little boost at some point, from their genetics. So it's not, again, you're not lying to them. You just don't know, right? I mean, especially at the younger age. Now, if they're like 16, 17, 18, you could be a little bit more, you may have to be a little bit more brutally honest in a nice way, right? Again, positive feedback, right? Get kids excited when they do things good, right? Help them to realize, hey, you did something good. Casual attributions are the reasons people give for their successes and failures. People tend to act in ways that confirm their beliefs. Again, don't let kids get in the habit of blaming their failures on others, right? They need to learn to own those. They also need to learn to own their successes and also realize when the success comes as a group or because, somebody else, be realistic with it and help them to realize, again, these are not only lessons for sports and development, like their development in getting better at their activities and things like this, but these are life lessons, right? Again, I feel like we fail children on this so much. We've got a whole generation of people that like to blame their problems on everybody else, and adults, as you see now, right? A person with high self-esteem makes the following casual attributions. Internal, the person is responsible for his or her own success or failure. This is true, right? And again, this isn't fake high self-esteem. This is why this is important for them to have realistic understanding of what they are. Because again, if you're building a house of cards on their self-esteem, it will crumble at any moment. Okay. So the person will be responsible for his or her own success or failure. This is good because when they do fail, they know that they need to work harder to succeed, right? They're not waiting for somebody else to rescue them. Okay, again, we've got a large number of people that are always wanting everybody else to bail them out, okay? Or that it's somebody else's fault, right? It's always somebody else's fault, right? Own it. Stable, the outcome influencing factors are consistent from one situation to the next. Again, consistency is great. Again, somebody, one thing that'll knock your self-esteem is when something happens that's like, where did that come from? Comes out of left field, things like that. And it happens, right? But somebody that has high self-esteem can also realize that when those things come, they'll get through it. They'll figure out a way, right? And then controllable, person is in control of the outcome influencing the factors, right? These all help with high self-esteem. Now, again, internal can always be great. You can always, for the most part, you can always kind of internalize things. The thing is there's always a hurricane, right? Those of you in Florida know what that is. I mean, you can't control that. It comes. We have no, and even when they're coming in, a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, it's going to hit the East Coast and then it goes to the West Coast, or it veers off, or it veers right out. I mean, these are all things outside of our control, right? And again, why do we, feel a little uneasy like there's one coming that might hit us Monday? Because nothing we do, the only thing we can do, like from the internal perspective is, make sure we have all the supplies we need and we get our house ready for hurricane, right? That's what we can do. We don't know the outcome of the actual storm, right? The storm could come in at a 1, could come in at a category 5. It could just drop down to a tropical storm or depression. We don't know. And again, we have no control over it, right? So again, this is when people's self-esteem, like if you think of it from a situation to situation type of self-esteem, it's not going to be very high in something like that. But again, when the things that help you in your self-esteem are like in your job, if you work at being really good at your job and you have, theoretically your job's somewhat stable, so, the wins that you get at your job are based on your outcomes and things like that, so you work hard, you do all the things you should be doing. You're responsible for your success and failure. You're going to have pretty stable outcomes, and you're going to have a lot of things within your control because you've mastered what you do in your job, right? So those are all good things. And again, same thing within sports. This is why, Kobe Bryant was so good at what he did. Man, he spent so much time studying the game, practicing the game, working on the game. And so, and he knew that if he was going to be who he was going to be, it was on him, right? And again, a lot of the times the outcome was very stable and controllable to him because he worked to be the best at what he was doing, right? On the other hand, people with low self-esteem, success and failure due to influences outside of their person, right? It's everybody else's fault, right? They're unstable. The outcome is based on fluctuating, it's like they're flipping a coin. And uncontrollable, the person is unable to control or influence the outcome. Again, when these things happen to us most of the time is when we're not prepared for something. So take a test. If you don't study for a test, the success or failure of that test is going to be, are you lucky enough to just happen to know the answers to that test? Like you just happen to have a good grasp somehow on the material, right? The outcome, if you don't, you're going through the test and you're like, man, I don't know. Thank goodness it's multiple choice, because maybe I'll get lucky enough and guess enough right answers. And again, you're not in control of it, right? You have no idea. You get done with the test, you may have a 85, a 75, you might have a 25, right? Children's attributions. Children with high self-esteem give internal, stable, controllable reasons for outcomes. With low self-esteem tend to make inaccurate attributions about outcomes and exhibit the following behaviors: unwillingness to try challenging tasks, lack of effort to do well, avoidance of participation. And again, I mean, it's one of those things. That's why we want them to have high self-esteem. But again, not every kid is going to naturally be good at things. And so, this is why as a coach, and again, if you're not working with children, this is even, you'll see this in adults. Like you take them in a gym, I mean, this is why, let's even back that up a little bit. You want to know why there's so many overweight and obese people that have just straight given up? Is because of this. If they've tried some things in the past, they straight up failed, right? I mean, they're like, I just can't get my weight in control. I've failed before. I'm going to fail again. Why even try, right? And so then they get this unwillingness to try, any challenging tasks. They're waiting for somebody to come up with a quick fix for them. This is why everybody jumps on the detox teas and all this other nonsense. Lack of effort to do well, right? They're not going to put in the work because they don't think they're going to get anything out of it. And then they're just going to avoid it altogether, right? So when we can first explain to them that, yes, anybody that does the work will see the results, and that's the thing. I mean, this is why you guys being good researchers, this is why you guys being able to present that research to people and say, look, here's the science behind it. There's no gimmicks, there's no tricks, there's no you have such horrible genetics, you can never win, right? You've got to get that stuff out of their head and say, look, everybody can lose weight. No, it's not easy. It's going to be work, yeah, again, this is why, but the thing is if other people have done it, and especially, there's always, here's a good time to find somebody who was probably overweight for longer and maybe even weighed a lot more than them and had given up way more than they ever did, that finally changed their life. That's why there's this mix of like research and then finding somebody that has an amazing personal story and saying, look, you're not as bad off as he or she was. This person, you have, your attitude coming in here today is better than theirs was. You're already 4, 5, 6 steps ahead of them. So you've got a leg up on them, and you can do this, but let's also be honest with it, right? We've got to figure out what you're doing in your diet that is sabotaging you and what you're doing in your diet that's good, right? And the thing is you're always going to find good and bad in everything. You're not getting physical activity whatsoever. We've got to figure out ways to add that in. We've got to figure out ways to do things that are going to be very challenging to you, but let's find some ways that are fun too, right? Let's figure out what's going to work for you, right? And the big thing is you got to participate, right? We're going to try to do this in a way where you gain confidence as you go, right? And so again, that's the thing. When you get, if they decide to go in the weight room, make sure, when they're in there, you need to be with them to help them feel comfortable and confident with the movements they're doing. Answer all their questions and answer questions they don't ask. Because again, a lot of them are so scared, they don't want to sound stupid. Like you'll have them doing say a military press and it says on the machine or whatever, this is military press, and they're doing it and they're like, I wonder what this works. But they may not ask you because they're like, man, I bet you everybody knows what this works, but I'm an idiot, so I'm not going to ask. Just tell them, say, hey, this thing's going to work your shoulders mostly, right? And it's going to work here and here. Also your triceps are going to get some work because you're sitting upright and you're trying to hold your body. Your core muscles are going to get involved. You may actually get sore in some of those muscles that this doesn't necessarily target, but that's why. Just let them know those things. Let them know what they're doing, why they're doing it. Tell them, say, hey, we're doing this many reps, this many sets because it's going to help you with this or that. Just explain as you go. That's the thing. People get high self-esteem when they feel like they can master something. How do you master exercise? You understand it. And when you understand it, you understand what the correct motions and movements, you understand how many sets you need to do, what type of weight. When you understand that, you can then take ownership of your success and failure, right? That's why I tell you guys, all fitness people need to be educators because you need to constantly educate your clients, right? All dietitians need to be educators. They need to constantly educate. This is why it drives me nuts when doctors get somebody that comes in and they're obese and they're like, yep, all right, you're too fat. Go diet and exercise. Yeah, it didn't help them. I guarantee when they came in before you evaluated them with their BMI, they knew they were fat. It's not like it was a surprise. They're probably been dealing with that for a while. Now that they have high blood pressure and some other markers, and the reason they came in to see you, You just pointed something out that they already knew. You told them to go do something that they probably know to do. They just don't really have any good direction or know how to go about it, how to build a relationship with food that's healthy, how to build a relationship with exercise and things that are healthy. You just basically made it like it's like, oh yeah, anybody can go do it type of thing. What does that tell them, right? And this is one of the things that irritates me with the fitness nutrition community and the medical community, and that the lack thereof of, hey, if you go see your general doctor and you have cancer, they're like, hey, here's oncologists, you need to go see them, right? It needs to be the same thing. Here is somebody that, here's some fitness people that I know are really good at what they do. They'll help you with your diet. They'll help you with your fitness program. Go see them. And there needs to be that, because again, this is why we have such a failure in our obesity rates. Okay. Attributing failure to lack of ability and attributing success to luck. Again, that's you don't want to be lucky. Sometimes it's good to be lucky, and even pro athletes will tell you, sometimes it's good to be lucky. But the reason they're pro athletes is not because their luck is just amazing. It's because they're really, really have strong ability to do things. And yes, that's the other thing too, is when you have a great ability, even sometimes when you throw in like a Hail Mary type of shot, because you have great ability, you have a greater chance of making that improbable basket versus somebody that's terrible at it, right? So you got to emphasize improvement through effort. If you put in the work, you will see improvement. And it's like that in everything, right? I don't care if it's like a subject you're terrible at school or physical. I mean, we can all improve if we put in the effort and we practice. Okay. Provide progress learning. So, okay, here's where you were, here's where you're at. This is how better you've gotten. Here's where we want you to be. So these are the things we need to continue to work on, right? Continue on the goal, right? Encourage the goal setting, right? So have little goals you want them to meet and have the big goals you want them to meet, right? And then give accurate feedback. Make sure you tell them what they're doing good. Don't lie to them and say, oh yeah, you're great at that. If they're still terrible, no, tell them what they're good at, but also give them accurate feedback on what needs to continue to improve. Adults' attributions. Adults evaluate themselves in these ways: observing past and present accomplishments and failures, comparing themselves with others, receiving verbal persuasion from others, and observing their physiological state or fitness level, right? Again, I've kind of touched on this. You know, if people have had nothing but failures when it comes to losing weight, guess what? Or here's the problem that we run into now. People have had small accomplishments. They get on some crash diet, right? They'll do like a really strict keto or really strict like intermittent fasting, or they'll do some like detox tea diet where they're getting in like very little calories. And so they lost a little bit of weight, but they couldn't sustain being on it because it was just way too crazy. And so then those little accomplishments are like, that's what I got to do. It's, I've got to do keto. I've got to do keto. But the problem is they love carbohydrates, right? So keto's not going to work for them because they love carbohydrates. Intermittent fasting, it was just too long in between meals for them, right? Now, again, keto may work for some people because they're like, yeah, I don't really need carbs. I'm fine. And they're not high quality athletes that have to have carbs. That's the other thing. If you're an athlete, you need carbs. So just deal with that. All right. Keto is not an athlete's diet. Intermittent fasting. Some people are like, yeah, I only get hungry like once or twice, within a day anyway. So they eat breakfast and they don't eat again until dinner or whatever else. Right. So they can kind of fast for that time and then fast while they sleep. Depending on whatever the fasting is. Right. And then the next day they'll eat like 2 or 3 meals, or there's all kinds of different fastings. Receive verbal persuasion from others, right? Again, this is the other problem. Everybody's on Instagram. And again, it may not be verbal, but maybe visual. They're like, you want to look like me? Well, I do keto. You want to look like me? I do paleo. You know, right? And so they're persuaded, oh yeah, I did this freaking detox tea for, now my body runs just fine. It burns fat even when, it doesn't matter what I eat, and blah, 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 And so they're getting persuasion to do all these crackpot things that they have to pay money for, right? And then they see where they're at versus other folks, right? And so again, they know where their physiological state is, and again, they may compare it to either other people that they're my age and they look great and they're fit and everything else, or they compare it to the other thing. I want to weigh what I did in high school. No, that's probably not gonna work. I mean, again, you know, you were different when you're 18. You're now 35, right? Your body has changed some. I mean, I'm not saying you're not gonna look amazing at 35, but you're not gonna look like you did in high school. Your body was different at 18, right? So how can causal attributions act as constraints for motor development? High school female learning to play basketball, all-star little league pitcher, right? So the high school female that's now learning to play basketball, she's got a lot to make up compared to her counterparts, right, that have been playing for a while. All-star little league pitcher, he may have trouble seeing like huge gains, right? So here's the good part about the top girl. She's got a lot to learn, so she's got a lot of major improvements. The bad part of it is she's trying to play alongside probably a lot of girls that have been playing for a while, so they may have a higher skill set at that time, but she will see herself getting closer to them at a much faster rate. All-star little league pitcher, on the other hand, is probably at the top of his game. So as he's trying to improve things, he may not really notice any changes or major changes, right? Again, as he hits puberty and stuff like that, if he's like little league, he'll see some changes there. But if he's already post puberty, it's going to be like small changes as he continues training and training and training, right? Perceived versus actual motor competency. Perceived motor competence is a source of behaviors such as participation in physical activity. High perceived competence can result in following higher self-esteem, increased performance effort, and increased engagement. Again, this is what my dissertation was on, right? People that have high conscientiousness, high perceived autonomy, and high autonomy, like they feel like they can do it, they feel like they can be successful, they feel like they can master what they're going to do, they feel like they've got good support, all that, are more successful in physical activity, right? So again, self-esteem is important. Also having realistic self-esteem is going to be important, because that's the other thing, is whenever somebody pops your bubble of falsehood, it's not a good thing, okay? Early childhood perception of actual motor ability is inaccurate. Giving effort is equated to high levels of competence. And moderate positive relationships seen between perceived and actual motor competence. So again, with little kids, and you've got to really encourage them to keep doing something. And any little tiny win they get, make a big deal about it. Because again, one of the problems is, especially like when you got a little kid and you got an older kid. So say you're playing catch with the older kid and the kid's throwing the catching and throwing, catch and throwing. You got a little kid that can't quite catch a ball yet or throw it. They may get frustrated easier because they see somebody else that can do it and they can't, right? Middle childhood, perception improves. Boys perceive their motor competence to be higher. Girls perceive their locomotor skills to be less than they are. Boys perceive their object control skills to be higher than they are. Again, why is this? There's probably a lot that goes into this. It could just be there's a natural tendency in girls to downplay what they can do. It could be the way that they're being raised. It could be that the way that they're being spoke to in school. It could be, that way peers are. you know, it's, I mean, there's gender differences that are social gender differences that no matter what, um, like what area of the world you come from, no, like whether it's a major matriarch or patriarch and all that, there are some things that just sort of happen this way, and so there's a thing where girls sometimes, and it's not all the time. Again, I know some girls that definitely have um, overconfidence in some of the things that they do. And I know some boys that are think they're not as good at something as they really are. I mean, so again, it's not across the board, but yeah, when they're looking at this and they look at some of these studies, and you're seeing a majority of this, something's going on there, right? And so again, we've got to improve the perception of the girls that like, nah, you're actually better at this than you think. um you know and sometimes with the boys, you gotta like hold them back, like, hold on there, tiger. you know MB ain't gonna be calling tomorrow, right? You're not there, brother. So yeah, in nice ways, right? Adolescence. So there's four clusters. There's people that are low perception, accurate judge of competence. People that are low perception, overestimate their competence. Average perception, accurate judgment of competence, and average perception, overestimated competence. Increased research supports saying perceived motor competence mediates the relationship between actual motor competence and their level of physical activity. Harder self-perception profile for children, 36 statements for 5 domains: scholastic competence, athletic, social, physical appearance, and behavioral conduct. Global score for self-worth, age 8 years through adolescence, and pictorial scale for children under 8 years. Again, you know, we always try to tell people, beauty is inside, not on the outside. But the problem is we all look at ourselves at the outside, unfortunately, right? And we know when somebody's pretty, we know when somebody's handsome, and we know if we're in that realm or not. And sometimes we overestimate, and sometimes we underestimate where we are in that. Social acceptance. And some kids are just social. Some kids just have personality, to gravitate towards. Some kids are awkward, right? And again, you've got to, I was, like I've worked with, like lots of people, and sometimes I meet awkward people, and sometimes they're aware they're awkward, sometimes they're not. And again, why I say that is because those that are aware that they're awkward are accepting of the fact that they're kind of awkward, and they also know the things that come off as awkward, and so they know in social situations to like somewhat avoid, like, here's some of my awkwardness, right? And again, they get more social acceptance. Where people usually fail in things like that is when they're not aware of what they should be aware of, right? Same thing, whether it's scholastic competence or athletic competence. When you're not aware of what you should be aware of is when you fail, right? Behavioral conduct, right? When you don't realize that you're being a jerk or something, or you're doing things that are going to cause problems, get you in trouble, things like that. That's bad. When you're fully aware you're doing it, at least you have the power to stop it, right? If you choose to. Self-esteem and motivation to participate are related in both children and adults. Again, when you feel more confident in something, you're more apt to do it. High motivation level is essential for beginning or maintaining participation in sport or physical activities. So again, it's one of those things. If something looks fun, it's got to really look really fun when you know that at first you're not going to be any good at it, right? And then again, persistence is continued engagement in it. And that's the thing is, if You've got to have at least high enough confidence that you know you can work through the tough times to get better, right? And dropping out and discontinued engagement in physical activity and sport can occur by controllable or uncontrollable factors. So uncontrollable factor would be like you get in a car accident and now you are, you know, physically disabled to do that, right? Versus, you know, you're not putting in the time, you're not seeing any fruits of what little effort you're putting in. It's not fun anymore. You're done, right? Children have a desire to be competent by improving skills or attaining goals. Of again, as long as they're moving forward, they're probably going to have a desire to continue, affiliate with, or make new friends. Again, social aspect helps, right? If you like your teammates and you like being a part of that, that's huge, right? So again, that gets to the next part, being part of a team. You know, it's one of those things that I'd say as an athlete, I miss playing. I miss playing and I miss competing. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that. But the thing I miss more is just being part of a team. And there's just something about that, you know, like when you're out there working and sweating with each other. You know, I mean, again, those of you that I've had the pleasure of teaching that are ex-military, you know, that's been the biggest thing that most of you guys have told me, like, you know, that you miss, you know, when I ask, like, what do you miss about military life? You know, because a lot of times you'll be like, there's a lot of things I don't miss about it. But the one thing you guys miss is the camaraderie with your fellow soldiers, right? And the brother and sisterhood that comes along with that, right? It's huge, you know, so being part of a team is a very, very important positive concept. Undertake competition and be successful. It's no fun to be on the worst team. It's no fun to be the best player on the worst team. And I can actually say, you know, I told you guys I'm not a good athlete, but there's been a few times I've been on such janky teams in sports, where I was the best athlete on the team and we were terrible, and it's not fun. You want to win, you know. I mean, I honestly I would prefer to be the worst player on the best team than be the best player on the worst team. Now, again, I'd rather be a better player on the best team. And again, because of that, I would work hard to not be the, you know, and again, I'm not trying to oust, you know, like if there's 12 guys on the team, it's not like I'm just trying to get to number 11. I want to be the best player on there. Now, again, I may not have the physical attributes to ever be that, but I always worked for it, right? And again, you need to have fun in what you're doing, especially, you know, like in sports. It needs to be a sport you enjoy doing. And again, you know, most sports will improve fitness, especially the more time you put into it, right? Um, Children's reason for dropping out, they don't like their coach, right? And sometimes it's not because you're a bad coach. I'm going to tell you, you're going to have some kids that you're just not going to be able to reach. Um, and it is what it is, you know. And sometimes it's just like, you know, it's like anything else, you know, it's like dating, you know, you're not going to like every person you go on a date with. It is what it is, right? Just try to be the best coach you can. And if it's not a good fit, and the kid would be better off on another team, let them go. Don't take it personally. You know, if they're like, well, I know so-and-so and he was my coach before, or she was my coach before, and it was really great. And I'd like if I could go beyond, let them go. You know, it's about their success, not you, right? Lack of playing time. Everybody wants to play, and that's why, you know, in little kid sports, they usually there's a, you know, mandatory playing time, and that's fine. Again, as you get older, there needs to be that where you learn, like, look, if you want to play, you better work. There's too much pressure, right? Again, make sure that like you're encouraging them, especially at the little levels. Encourage them to win, but don't, like, I mean, you know, it's not like the NFL and you're going to get fired if you lose too many games, right? Too much time is required. Again, you know, we'd love to have kids out there practicing and playing all the time and doing those things, but it may not work, right? With the others, with their schedules, with school and everything else, you know, or their parents. The overemphasis on winning. Again, winning is important, but don't overemphasize it, especially at younger ages. As they get older, yes, you know, the whole reason you're out there is to win, right? I mean, when you're in junior high and high school, college, and pro, yeah, you're trying to get them to win. Um, you know, But again, don't lose opportunities when they played a really good game and still lost. Those are great opportunities for to be a great coach and help them develop. Lack of fun, especially at the youngest ages. The sport needs to be really fun, right? By the time they've developed good work ethics and things like that, the practice time can be a little less fun, a little bit more focused on getting work done and stuff like that. Lack of progress, man, when they feel like they peaked out, lack of success. Again, it's hard sometimes, especially if you're coaching a bunch of kids, to always be able to like monitor each kid and make sure that they're moving forward, right? It's hard. Recent review by Crane Temple concluded the major reasons for you to drop out from physical activity are lack of enjoyment, perception of physical competence, social pressures, competing priorities, and physical factors such as injury. Again, what would you do to improve retention rates? That's a lot of stuff to take care of. In all honesty, we need more coaches on the teams. Again, this is why it's important to, to have, some of those parents, like if you can get parents that are there all the time, that'll volunteer, and the ones that aren't just going to be there just for their kid, like they understand that, like, you're moving from Johnny's biggest fan to the team, like you're not part of the team. So, we need you to be on board with that. That's huge because, again, you've got to have some folks that are helping them work on skills. You need that. Having a coach that's going around, giving everybody a pat on the back, telling them like, hey, like, great effort, do it again. Yeah, but I failed. Yeah, but you gave great effort, so do it again. All those things, right? And making sure that, when you have more eyes on things, you get more success. When you got one coach out there coaching a whole group of, young boys and young girls, there's just some that are going to get lost in the shuffle, right? Teacher-centered versus student-centered approach. Teacher-centered approach, the instructor designs and presents developmentally appropriate activities in class. Instructor chooses when to progress students to the next task. Student-centered approach has optimal control. The student has optimal control over engagement-related decisions, and student effort is recognized as connected to the outcome. Now, here's the thing. When you're a coach, it has to be teacher-centered because you've got a whole group of folks. When you are a personal coach and you have somebody paying you to teach their kid, you can do more student control, but at the same time, it needs to be student-parent control, because a lot of times the students don't, especially the younger they are, they don't want to put in any effort. They just want to be good at something. Right. And so there, again, you need to sometimes be like, look, we need to at least meet 3 times a week if you want to see difference. Right. Mastery motivational climates favorable influence young children's fundamental motor skills and activity levels. Right. So as they get better at mastery of whatever they're doing, yeah, it gets them more hyped to do it. Right. So adult exercise participation, personal incentives, sense of self, and perceived options. Right. So, what are they going to get out of this? How do they feel about themselves? And do they feel like this is really the best option for them, or is there something else they could be doing? Right. So these late 80s studies propose that adult exercise participation reflects 3 interrelated factors. Personal incentives, such as desire to demonstrate mastery, compete, be with others, receive recognition, maintain health, cope with stress, or improve physical fitness, right? So if whatever their goals are, if they feel like they can get towards those goals, or they're working on those goals, or they're at those goals and maintaining those goals, that's basically that, right? Sense of self, particularly in regards to one's self-esteem for physical activity, they feel good about what they're doing. Do they feel confident about what they're doing? No, or do they feel like every day they're going in and wasting their time, or that they're not going to see results? That they're a complete and utter loser, and they will always be a complete and utter loser. On which side of the scale are they? Perceived options are the opportunities a person has in giving situations, such as transportation to various sites where adult programs are offered. Right. Again, getting there is part of the battle, and not half the battle, but part of the battle. Getting there every day is huge. What are their barriers? Are they able to overcome those? Stereotypes of appropriate activity levels, right? So these are things, way back when, oh, no, girls shouldn't lift weights. They don't want to get all bulky, right? Stereotype. No, guys, you don't want to do cardio. It's going to make you all like slim, like a little girly man, things like that. Those are all old stereotypes, right? Again, break that from them. And people still have those stereotypes. And you got to tell them, like, no, cardio is good for you in these ways. No, weightlifting is good for you in these ways. No, you do not have the genetic makeup to get huge. And that goes for guys and girls most of the time. I mean, there's very few guys that have enough testosterone in in their genetics and stuff to get like monster size, right? Limited access to facilities and programs. It's like for me, one, let's just say I really wanted to be a good golfer. One, I don't have the time to go play 4-hour rounds. And two, I don't have the money to go play golf, right? It's expensive, right? I mean, it's a limit, I can be a really good runner because all I need to do is be able to buy a pair of tennis shoes. I can go outside and run anywhere, right? But yeah, golf is expensive. Childhood experiences. If you had good experiences in participation, it usually fosters hey, I think I can do this. Man, if you were the kid that was getting slammed in the face by the dodgeball your entire life, not so much. Concerns over personal limitations on exercise. People don't realize what their body can do. They think that their body will always stop short of being able to reach any goals. People believe exercise is harmful to their health. I don't know that people truly believe that. I think people will use that as an excuse. You may run into 1 out of 1,000 people that may actually have a true belief in that, but you may hear it, but I don't think most people, I think most people know that it's good for them. Lack of role models, right? If you were a kid that grew up in a house of obese parents and older siblings, and you never saw any of them try to go work out or anything, and never see any success, you're not quite sure it's really going to work for you, right? Lack of knowledge about appropriate exercise programs, right? I think this one's, should have been at the top of the list. Most people don't know. I mean, hell, a lot of people that are actually being successful in exercise programs still don't know what they're doing. And then they're telling other people to do things that they don't know what they're talking about. And sometimes it works, but they don't know, right? And they don't know why it works, right? If people knew why things work, we probably wouldn't even have the keto diet. Physical activity. So summary, physical activity has been proved beneficial at all ages. Perceived competence is a mediator between actual motor competence and physical activity level. Participation in physical activity reflects motivation to participate. Motivated people at all ages tend to have higher levels of self-esteem. Self-esteem can be improved through efforts of peers, teachers, coaches, and significant others. All right, so that's that. Yeah, these chapters are getting pretty similar, but that's cool. All right, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. I'm trying to get out of this and stop the recording. Chapter 17 will be next, and then chapter 18, and then that's it. All right, see you later.